next level.
Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Coach Tiffany Parra coming to you with Phoenix Fitness Fanatics Magazine, elevating your mind, body, and spirit. We are taking center stage today on the Own It Publishing platform. And today I have one of our contributing writers. You have seen him before. Take the stage with me. I'm going to go ahead and bring him on in. Good afternoon, Jeffrey. How are you today?
Well, it's good morning for me and good morning for you because we're still in that time
Really
zone.
early.
So yeah, you're the early bird. But hello, and it's always a pleasure to share the stage with you, Coach Tiffany. So excited to be here today.
So excited to have you, Jeffrey. And, y'all, Jeffrey has been with the Phoenix Fitness Fanatics Magazine family for going on now 3 years. He will be our January cover once again. So very excited about that. Just really excited to see him growing and just really shining out there in the world. So today we're going to talk about Jeffrey's abundance in Optimum Wellness, his transformation in that. I mean, this guy has been transforming his mind, body, spirit. He is now also just rocking it out there with changing his finances as well. It's just absolutely amazing. So, Jeffrey, please, let's just start out by you just sharing who you are, where you're from, and just a little bit about your background and upbringing.
Sure, no problem. Thank you, Tiffany. So yeah, it's been an amazing 4 to 5 years, and I am originally from Western New York and grew up in a small little farming town outside of Buffalo in a town called Elma. And I am the first of 5 boys in my family. I do have a twin brother. With that, the upbringing was, pretty typical. I think it's typical back in the 50s and into the 60s. I was born in 1954. I just turned 69. And back then, the 50s was the rock and roll, or the Elvis Presley days, and really being brought up in a community where family was important and schooling was important, and just finding your path in those earlier days. We did have strict parents, and growing up with that, I think that we resisted it. Growing up, and I think every kid resists their parents at certain points. But as I got older, I appreciated the discipline that they instilled in us, and the values that we have, that I've carried over throughout the years, and looking at what's going on today. So I'm very, very blessed in that respect. And my father was a very hard worker. He was hardly ever home. He was constantly working. And that was one thing that we were, I'm going to say that we were, disappointed in, because we always, as 5 boys growing up, we love our mom, but we very seldom saw our dad because he was at the office. And during my transformation story, I'll be sharing that too, because that was me. So it's like 2 peas in a pod here. But what I enjoyed was going to school and being able to have the freedom of exploring. I was in the school systems with regards to the sports systems. I was in the theater. I was in different organizations. So it allowed me to really explore different areas within the possibilities of what my future was going to, hold for me, which has changed many, many, many times. So, but growing up in Western New York was good. It had its pros and cons. And then I was looking forward to getting out of Western New York because I wanted to explore. I was always, all over the place and wanting to have more experiences. And in order to do that, it was a matter of getting out. And thank God I was comfortable in doing that. And my four brothers well, now three brothers. Unfortunately, I had one brother who passed last year. They all stayed in the three that are there now stayed in Western New York. The one who passed actually did travel. He was in the Marines and he traveled all over the world. He settled down in Texas when he was in the military. And then unfortunately, when he was diagnosed with MS, he moved back to Western New York and stayed there. So, but it's during my journey, I would say in the last 4 years, I've been talking more and more with people who share their story with me. And there's some really amazing commonalities across everybody's lives, which is pretty amazing. So
Absolutely. So many great stories out there,
Yeah.
and I tell you, you really hit the nail on the head when you talk about, the generations and just kind of how those, our parents are, right? The dads. My father was in law enforcement. We barely saw him a lot of times as well. My mother was like Rosie the Riveter. She was home. She was able to cook and do all those things that, moms did. But she also spent a lot of time in the office. So, but nowadays you see it, it's kind of a transition there. And you see a lot of, dads staying at home and
Right.
a lot of moms being the ones that are absent and things like that.
Sure.
So it's very interesting, right? So
We were very fortunate. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. So she was there 24/7, running the house, taking care of the family and cooking and cleaning with our help, of course. That was part of our upbringing. So
we're going to go ahead and cut to a quick commercial break, and then we're going to come back and talk to Jeffrey a little bit about the college years and just kind of how his transition went, in that. So we'll be right back. And we are back. This is Coach Tiffany Parra with Phoenix Fitness Fanatics Magazine, elevating your mind, body, and spirit. I love that commercial, don't you, Jeffrey? It always
yeah,
has us in our seats, right? That was
Bebop.
whole entertainment. Big ups to Michelle Mupo out there, always keeping us entertained with those wonderful commercials. So we are back with Jeffrey Berger talking about his just journey to optimum wellness on all levels of life. So, Jeffrey, let's talk a little bit. We talked backstage, and have talked offline, about just your journey and, college, things like that, and just kind of how, your route kind of changed there, and your journey kind of took just a different route there. Let's talk a little bit about that and how that went for you.
Sure. So obviously we grew up in an era where we were taught to, go to school, get good grades, graduate, go to college, get good grades, graduate, and find a nice, safe, secure job.
Right.
Well, that was a myth for many. Not, and some, obviously, yes, it turned out really, really well. But when I graduated, I actually went into a school. I went to a school down in West Virginia called Alderson Broaddus, and I was actually in the second class. Well, no, I applied for to be in the class of the first physician's assistant school in the United States.
Oh, wow.
And they only allowed 65 people into the class, and I was ranked number 66. But I went anyway because I thought I'll go down, I'll start taking classes, and then migrate over into the program. I was there for a year. Things just weren't resonating with me for some reason. And I started to rethink about my life and where I really wanted it to go. I did a lot of theater in high school, and that's kind of where my passion was for the arts, because I played piano for, I think it was 9 years growing up, classical piano, doing recitals and performing. So I left the school, went back to Buffalo, and attended the University of Buffalo in the arts program, and went through that program I was into my 4th year. And one of the criteria being in the arts program is that you had to participate within the dance company. And I could not do that because I was working full time. I was living on my own. I was paying my own bills, and the dance company required evening rehearsals and stuff. And I was like, this is 5 days a week, and I've got to work. I've got to make money. I'm going to school. I got to pay my rent. I got to eat, so forth and so on. So with regards to that experience, I ended up having to leave because my vision was to go to New York and perform. I wanted to get into performing arts, and I actually left the University of Buffalo without doing the dance company because I couldn't. And I auditioned for the New York City Jazz Company, and I got into the company because you don't need a degree to be admitted to a dance company. They look at your singing, they look at your dancing, they look at your performance, and they don't look at a paper degree. They want to see what you can do on stage. So that's what I did. Is I left college and went into the performing arts and pursued that career until I fractured my back in a rock video. So that changed my whole, the aspect of performing, because I could not perform on stage, especially with a dancing career. And so I ended up having to leave New York City because I was in therapy for almost 3 years with a fracture. They wanted to do surgery. I did not want any surgery on my back from previous colleagues who I've talked to, and they've had surgery. You're never the same. So I've never had surgery to this day, and I'm managing my, the lower back issues with that. Ended up going to Boston, and it's like, okay, what am I going to do? I ended up going back to school at Harvard University and pursued software engineering, and ended up getting a job with Lotus Development, which was a massive company in the day back in the 80s, who has since been bought out by IBM. And massive changes with the corporate world, restructuring and downsizing, and I was in one of those cuts. So then over the next number of years, I ended up just working for different companies in the Boston area as a software engineer. And for 25 years, I was in the corporate world and pursuing something that I thought that I was. In the beginning, I was really very, very appreciative, and I enjoyed that journey until later years, which we'll talk about later on. But I think that college, there's pros and cons to college. When I look back at it, there are necessary professions, if you will, that do require college and a degree. But at the time, I was not looking for a degree in the fine arts, and I did get certificates and different awards with regards to software engineering. And with that industry, it changes like dirty diapers. It changes constantly. So what I learned back in Harvard over the 25 years of my life within the industry, that was obsolete. So it was more of being on the job, learning the new technologies that were coming online and being involved with it, hands-on experience, because what is taught previously in college, it doesn't apply back when I was doing it, and more so today because technology has completely changed. I mean, when I was in technology, there was no internet. And look at where we are with the internet. Look at where we are with blockchain technology. Look at where we are with AI.
Yeah.
Everything is changing. So I think that for people who are looking at, a career, really look at the college curriculum and look at the future of that. And one of the big things that I find really frustrating is people are paying massive amounts of money for college, and they go 20, 30, 40 years paying off their college loan. And that's really horrible.
Yeah. It's like unneeded stress, right?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You should be doing something that you're passionate about. As you said, school's not for everyone. It is for some. I know, even being in the corporate world myself and hiring, people, as being in HR management, some of the people that I would hire the ones that didn't have the degree, but the ones that had the experience and the skills to do the job. I didn't need the paper, because the paper, half the time, the person didn't have the common sense that I needed them to have to do the job. So
Exactly. Yeah, it's sad, but in the same token, there's pros and cons no matter what industry that you're in. It's a matter, I think today more so for, with what I've learned, it's a matter of being educated, getting the right information, and looking at both sides and evaluate so you can make an educated decision. Because for me, and I'm sure for you growing up, it was, this is the way to do it. Go. And we were puppets. Go to school, get good grades, go to college, graduate, get a nice, safe, secure job. And that's kind of the path, the yellow brick road that we were led down, only to realize that we've got a lot of broken systems and corrupt systems out there that have their own agenda. And it doesn't fit with our agenda in the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, we're going to cut to another quick commercial break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about a little more of corporate and about the stresses behind that corporate environment. So,
Yep.
We'll be right back. I love that one too. That is Upscale Online Business Solutions. Absolutely.
There you go. Great commercial.
Great commercial. So we are back. Phoenix Fitness Fanatics Magazine, elevating your mind, body, and spirit. We have Mr. Jeffrey Berger here, and we are talking about his journey to optimum wellness, his whole transformation, and just really getting, man, just watching this guy rocking and rolling out there, just getting to the top, man. So let's talk about just, those corporations. So many corporations and businesses, they're having a lot of just major shifts out there, which really impact the employees and the employees' morale, things like that. So what's your take on that? Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yes, massive, massive changes, I would say, in the last 10 to 15 years. When I started in corporate America, I enjoyed it. I had a really good time. I felt that the environment was very conducive for bringing people on board to be a participant in the journey of the company, the involvement of the company, and in many instances, depending. I mean, I worked for a lot of small companies, but then I worked for major companies, and there were some slight differences. But back in the day, you had vacation, you had the 401k uh, contribution, you had team come out, camaraderie and different events that you could go to that the corporations would, pay for and to allow you to continue your education. Those are some really great, great experiences. But I found over time that those each year went by, little pieces were taken away, the stress level started to get up, and the expectation of the employee was doubled, tripled, quadrupled, and it started to put questions in my head saying, what am I doing? Why is this going on? This is not like it was 10 years or 15 years ago. And the idea of a loyal employee was diminishing because there was no respect for the employee, and especially for those individuals who are on salary, because we are expected to work overtime and not get paid for it. A
Mm-hmm.
couple of hours a week, maybe 5 hours a week of overtime,
Yeah.
no
Not
problem. We're dedicated. I want to get the work done. I want to be a productive contributor to the ultimate goals of the company and within my department as a software engineer. However, when those hours got to be work, up to 60, 70, working into 6 days and 7 days a week,
yeah.
and all you're doing is getting up in the morning, going to work, coming home, eating and going to bed, and doing that 7 days a week, year after year after year, having to cancel vacations because of time constraints on projects that project managers had no clue what they were doing and how they were managing it. Was, no, we got a deadline, you got to get it done, you got to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
So those were the things that I was experiencing during the last, I would say, 10 years of my corporate life. So, and it really impacts the employee,
Mm-hmm.
because we all want to work. Obviously, we have to work to have a lifestyle. We want to do our personal best.
Right.
However, that is interfered by corporate and the greed by corporate and their bottom line. I understand corporations have to make money, but when you see your managers going home at 5 o'clock and you're staying till 10 or 11, and when it comes time for raises, and well, we don't have money for raises, and you see your boss coming in with a brand new BMW, it's like, well, wait a minute, what's going on here? So
Right.
those are the changes that I've experienced, as well as a number of my colleagues who went through the same thing. So
Yeah.
it's sad to see where America is going. I see other countries who really value their employees, and they have time off, and there's that work-life balance. And we
Right.
wonder why we have the problems today that we do in the United States with people in the workforce. They're burnt out.
Yeah.
They are not having a quality of life, and it should be a balance, and that's not what's happening today.
That should
Or
be.
I'd say in the last 10 years, 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. The last 10 to 15 years, that work life balance is now just a work balance,
Right.
and
Yeah.
you have companies wondering why they have such a high turnover, and turnover is money for the company. I
That's
mean, it
right.
costs them thousands and sometimes millions of dollars because they cannot keep employees because they're just not happy. They don't have the morale, and it doesn't take much. I mean, like you're saying, I mean, being able to just honor vacation time or being able to, allow someone to go home after, I mean, if they're going to work overtime, great. Work, maybe a 10-hour shift or something like that, not 12
Yeah.
hours, six
Yeah.
days a week or 15 hours, things like that, because that is going to
Right.
lead to, that burnout, right? So, um, you had mentioned before that you had left corporate back in 2016, and we've talked, in other conversations about that burnout, So let's talk about the burnout that you went through. Like, what was physically going on with you, and, and emotionally going on with you with that burnout, because that's huge.
Yes. Yes. It is very huge. And over the last 5 years of my coaching with holistic physical and mental wellness, I've talked to so many people in regards to this, and it's pretty common. And in fact, it's embarrassingly common in the US. I can't talk about outside of the US, but with the constraints of what businesses are putting on employees, the stress that is added to that, I would say the last 5 years of my corporate career were
Mhm.
probably, some of the worst. And with regards to being, because I was a manager in some respects, where I was managing I had 13 projects on my plate at one time.
Wow.
And to talk about having the stress from those projects, but then also working in a hostile work environment,
Mm.
and then having a manager who had no clue really what I was doing. And basically, I mean, many people have experienced this. They have a manager who hates them, you know, and doesn't like them. And no matter what you do, it's not right. So the pressure and the stress from the different projects that I was, doing in the last 5 years uh, with a pharmaceutical company of all, was really detrimental to my physical and mental wellness.
Mhm.
And over the years, I just kept declining from a health perspective. My depression was coming back because I am a survivor of, and we've talked about this, I'm a survivor of childhood molestation, chemical dependency, two attempts at suicide. So that, kind of that was put to rest for a number of decades. And then the last 5 years, it started to resurface. And it's like, I don't like this place that I'm getting into.
Mhm.
And no matter what I did, doing my personal best and getting accolades from all of the department heads that I was working with, the project manager, the development manager, everything was fine from their perspective. But my boss always gave me a low rating. So that added stress. It's like, okay, well, what am I doing wrong? So
Right.
with that being said, the stress, and stress, we've talked about stress. Stress is a killer.
It is.
It eats inside of your body. It destroys your organs. It destroys every aspect of your immune system. And if you don't find, if you really, and I didn't really understand stress back then. Yeah, we get stressed out, and we deal with it.
Mhm.
Build a bridge, get over it, and just keep moving on. And suppressing it till eventually I ended up actually getting going out on disability,
Mhm.
and my doctor put me on this med that just I went psycho on, and I'm like, holy crap,
Yeah.
I can't take this. I don't want this. So I was out for 6 months, and getting my health back and really focusing on me, and then then the day that I was supposed to go back to work, I'm driving to work and I'm like, oh my God, the stress started to come up, the anxiety started
Oh,
to come in. And I was thinking, do I really want this? Is this going to be what's best for me? And
mhm.
just going back and thinking about all of the incidences that had happened. And one major incident was my last review. I found out that I was reported to HR. And I'm like, so reported for what? Well, we can't go into it.
What?
I'm like, what do you mean you can't go into it? And I was reported from a woman who lives in Chicago, who worked from home in Chicago, and she reported me. To this day, I still have no clue what she reported. So I went to HR saying, okay, what's going on? What is she accusing me of? Well,
Mhm.
we can't talk about that. It's a closed complaint. I said, well, if this is a legit complaint, how am I supposed to work on correcting it if it is a legit? And if I don't know, how am I going to, improve that? And that was a major hit for me.
Mhm.
And it was just back and forth with HR, back and forth. So driving to work, I said, I can't do this. I'm not going to do this. I won't tolerate the hostility and the demeaning aspects of my management. And I walked in because I was expecting to go back in and just go back to work. But I
Right.
walked in and to my boss's office and I'm shaking like a leaf. And I just looked at her and I said, Diane, I'm done. I can't, I'm not coming back to work. You have destroyed my career here. Uh, and I will not tolerate your hostility. I will not tolerate your demeaning me as a professional. When everybody else outside of this department has given me accolades for all of the projects that I have worked on, and you have no clue what I do. I resign effective immediately now. I mean, there was a lot of things that I said because I was in there for probably a half hour.
Yeah.
And, in my head, I'm like, oh my God, I'm really doing this. I'm really doing this. Because I never walked in and quit a job before this. I mean, I was in my late 50s then. And so she said, you can't quit. You can't quit. I said, who said? I said, goodbye. I'm out of here. So I went to my desk, packed up, and I left. And as I was driving home, that stress level that was like way up here went right down to the bottom. And I had no stress, no anxiety. And it was like a ton of bricks off of my shoulders. And I felt so good. I
Yeah.
felt so good. But in the same token, I'm like, holy crap, I just quit. What am I going to do? But that's another thing down the road. But I'm going to say it was an invigorating experience, even though I was shaking my shoes,
Mhm.
never having done that. And actually speaking up to my manager because I was growing up. Don't talk back to your managers. Don't talk back to your teachers. And I, when I was in seventh grade, I talked back to my art teacher and he slapped me in the face. And I went home and the red mark was still on my face. And my mother said, what happened to your face? Oh, Mr. LaDuca slapped me in the face because I talked back to him. Boom. She hit me on the other side of the
Oh my.
face. Don't you ever talk back to your teachers? And I'm like, oh geez, okay. So, and that's what I was thinking back into the day. It's like, don't talk back to your bosses, blah 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 blah. But you know what? We have to. We have to stand up for who we think, not who we think, but who we believe we are, and what we are there for. And if somebody else disagrees, well, we have the right to voice our opinion
That's
whether
right.
they agree or not. And I just, you know what? I stood up for my rights and I said, I'm done. I'm done.
Good for you. Good
So
for you. I just love that, Jeffrey, because you know what? You have to stand up to these employers out there that are taking advantage, that are causing these hostile work environments and things as well. I mean, you and I have spoken about my story as well before, and corporate can. Just that stress is the silent killer. I feel like corporate is a loud killer for us because
right.
there are those environments, and it's not all corporations that are like this. There are some
That,
really good corporations
absolutely.
that love on their
Absolutely.
employees, that give their employees the days they need, and that have that work-life balance. I just wish that
Right.
everybody would follow suit in that. So,
Yeah, and there should be corporate rules that corporations have to follow for their employees. All
absolutely.
right,
Yes.
and I had another experience real quick with another company, Millennium Pharmaceuticals. It's funny, pharmaceutical companies, and the manager. There was a situation where the manager was actually sexually harassing me, a woman, a
Wow.
woman. And I reported it. Long story short is that I ended up having to leave that company because of the harassment and I in my exit interview, I said that you guys will regret having me leave because I wouldn't do anything to this manager. And 6 months after I left, the entire department, there was 16 people in that department that I was working with. They all left on the same day because of this woman. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, see,
So,
just keep your eyes out. Be aware of the work environment. I mean, really, to just that message to the higher ups. Just be aware
right.
of what is going on and really talk to your employees. You are not at a level, you're never at a level that you cannot go and speak with your employees. I mean, I don't care, if you're that CEO, you know what I'm saying? I mean, a business owner, as a business owner, if I have employees, I want to know my employees. I want to know, everything about them, because once you know everything about them and kind of know how they, know about
Right.
the family and know about different things, I mean, you'll
A-
know how to handle certain situations. And it's just so much better.
Absolutely. We all go through our own life experiences, and when you have, a company, obviously with bigger companies, it's more difficult to have that kind of an environment. But with smaller companies, it's all about the camaraderie. It's all about the vision for the company, because if the company does well, then the employees do well. And it's shared amongst the efforts of everybody that is, pulling together to make it successful for, everybody.
Right.
So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Jeffrey, it is always such a pleasure having you on the show. And we are going to
thank
be
you.
back for much, much more with Jeffrey and his transformation, y'all. It is just amazing. So, Jeffrey, do you have any words of wisdom or encouragement that you'd like to share with the audience before we take off today?
Yes, I am going, and this is what I will share. And this is what I have been really, really passionate about, and want to convey to people to keep their options open and with an open mind.
Yes.
As I've talked about this journey, this initial journey, we were following that yellow brick road where we thought, oh, we're going to end up in Oz. Well, most people who are following that with the traditions of the systems that we have today, you're not going to end up in Oz. You're going to end up having water poured over you and you melting away because of what is going on. And being able to be educated on both sides, looking at the pros and cons, and then you make that decision. And this is something that we'll go into, a little bit more as we go through the transformation, because it was a rude awakening for me. Just like this beginning here is leaving corporate America because it was toxic. And keep your minds open to getting information, even if it doesn't initially. If you're skeptical, if you're cynical, forget it. If you're skeptical, that means you're open to getting some seeds planted, and if they germinate, great. If they don't, then they don't. So that would be my advice.
Awesome, Jeffrey. Thank you. Well, yes, everybody, keep your options open. That's for sure. So, thank you so much for joining us today on Phoenix Fitness Fanatics Magazine's podcast. We look forward to seeing you again. And if you have not subscribed to the magazine yet, definitely go to phoenixfanaticsmag2021.com and subscribe. You will see some amazing content from Jeffrey. You will also see some amazing content from some other awesome contributing writers out there as well. We've just got some really awesome stuff going on. So subscribe. We love you, and we'll see y'all next time. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Take it to the next level.